Hi everyone, this is Rohit from Lifestyle Mastery, and I'm excited to have Arjun Pillai, who's currently the co-founder and CEO of Docket, which is an AI platform that serves as a virtual sales engineer for AEs to close complex B2B deals. He's a serial entrepreneur who was most recently the chief data officer at ZoomInfo. Welcome to the show, Arjun.
Thanks, Rohit. It's great to be here, and thanks for having me.
You have had a very interesting journey. You've had exits, but you started off with Kerala, which is a state in India. How did your journey in startup start, and how did you land up there in the Bay Area?
Yeah, it's a so I'm I didn't really know about the startup world. As you rightly said, I'm originally from Kerala, India, which is the southwest coast of India.
Yeah,
It's not a startup. I mean, back in the day, right? I graduated engineering in 2010. Startup was not a word that I knew. I always wanted to do something of my own. I didn't
yeah,
really know what that meant. But then eventually, when I left my engineering, I wanted to start a company because that meant doing something of my own. So three of my batchmates and I started the first company, Profoundis, was maybe 23 and a half or something at the time. That's how I landed. It's more like, when you are super early, you are this young and stupid. So when you are in that phase, you don't really know what you are getting into. And I
yeah.
really didn't know what I was getting into. So it's easy to make the decisions.
Mm.
And thankfully, my family didn't have financial burdens that I was free enough to resign the job that I had. I didn't have to think like five times. I just resigned, came up and started a company, failed with a bunch of products. And that's how it kind of started off. And along the way, you kind of learn, right? You meet people. We got into some of the accelerators like Microsoft Ventures had something going back in India at the time. I went to Startup Chile for a little bit, lived in Chile for 6, 7 months,
Nice.
traveled to US a few times, came to Silicon Valley for a 2 week accelerator kind of a program. So all of these things kind of open up your horizons. You learn new things like investors and ESOP and like post-money valuation and all these different terminologies you kind of learn and kind of learn and then start building. The key is always to build a product, a valuable product that adds value to the customers. Eventually learned that. And the journey, this is the third company. The two companies that I created successfully got bought out. And we can talk about all of that. But that's how I got into this space.
Got it. And before you had a successful um, fail with a couple of your first four products before you got a success onto it. So how did you maintain that sort of consistency to keep working and building so that you are able to successfully get to a success?
Yeah, it certainly goes back to my young and stupid thing, right?
Yeah,
When you are in that phase, when you're 23 or 24, right, with no financial burden,
yeah,
with three of your batchmates. So in my mind or in our mind, it was almost like an extension of the men's hostel. So we were having a lot of laughs. It was a lot of fun. We used to go to restaurants together, movies together, hang out together. So if you look at my life, the time when I had my maximum number of laughs per day, if I take that as like a metric, that was the phase when I had the maximum laughs per day. Right. So
no,
if when you're in that phase, you're not, again, you don't have a family, you don't have a child, you're not worried about benefits and insurance and savings and things like that. All you are thinking is, okay, today I have this thing to execute. And we had like insane amount of energy, insane amount of motivation to try and make this thing work. So each of the so-called failure, didn't even feel like a failure. It was like, yeah, we tried something else. We tried something else. It was with this team. So it was kind of all normal. That was one big reason. The second reason was we never ran out of money. Given I come from like an Indian middle class background, frugality comes naturally to me and pretty much all of the team. So that meant that we were taking very little salary and we were super happy with that salary. For the initial 2.5 years, my salary was $150 a month in Kerala. Like it's not the same as 150 in US or in UK, but 150 is still small in
yeah.
Kerala too. But that was enough for us. Then we stayed together in one apartment. So anybody who joins the company, we would give them company accommodation and company vehicles. What that meant is we have a place, you have a bed, you can stay there, and my bike is there. That is the company vehicle. That's what it meant basically. Now, so think of it as like a really an extension of men's hostel where people were like being in a hacker house, going to bed at 2 a.m., waking up at 7 o'clock, and then, restarting the day again exactly the same way. So we just didn't register anything as fails. We just kept working on one thing to the other. Always the happiness kind of went along.
Mm, interesting. And how did you go about building Insent? What was um, the intent back then?
So Insent was my second company. My first company was Profoundis. We failed with 4 products, and the 5th product succeeded. That
Right.
product was called as Vibe. That was a sales intelligence product.
Right.
Let me quickly tell that, and we can come to Insent too.
Sure.
The 4th product that failed, I was getting on calls to try and close companies or try out the product. I got about 90 people to try out the product by going on Skype calls back then. So before the call, I would do research on Rohit, right? I would go to your LinkedIn, to your Twitter, to your Facebook. I'd spend 30 minutes researching you, and then my calls with you would go well. I
Right.
realized that research helps calls. I'm not a trained sales guy, right? So I had to kind of learn it that way. Then I was like, oh, if I'm spending that kind of time, then other salespeople might be spending that kind of time. Let's
Sure.
solve that problem. And that's how Vibe was born. So Vibe ended up being like a business data service. Today it's called sales intelligence, similar
Right.
to like a ZoomInfo or a Clearbit that got acquired by HubSpot, or like, all the other companies, Cognizant, Seamless, Apollo, all these companies that we did that back in 2013
Mm.
was when we rolled out that offering, right? That succeeded really well. We had a Chrome plugin that had 110,000 users from 150 countries, all through $0 marketing. We had 190 companies using the product. We grew from like a 4 people to 7 people to 12 people to 32 people to 52 people to 72 people company.
Wow.
I had a fully committed term sheet for my pre-series A, but at that time, an existing partner, Full Contact, who we had partnered for about 10 months, 11 months maybe, they
Mm.
wanted to buy out the product and the company. So the whole company, including the IP, technology, revenue, people, everything got acquired by Full Contact and became the first product exit in the history of the state in India, Kerala.
Right.
Became like a milestone event in the ecosystem. So that was good. It was a smaller exit. It was a single digit million exit.
Okay.
So in terms of like actual money making, investors made money. Founders actually did not make a ton of money because a
Okay.
portion of that was in stock, right?
Okay.
And after we sold the company, the company that bought the company did not really go super high. So
Oh,
it's still there. Who knows? Maybe they'll turn it around tomorrow and we'll all make a ton of money. But as of now, it hasn't happened. I hope it does.
yeah.
Then from there, so that was the first journey, right? So I sold the company. I was with Full Contact for about 1.5 years, and then moved on, consulted for about 8-9 months, and then started Insent.
Okay.
Let me take a pause there because I don't want to keep talking, but we can talk about what we want.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is super interesting. And I mean, I've always, I'm also from India. I worked in Delhi, and you always look at Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore as, the 3 biggest startup hubs. It's pretty similar out here in the UK as well. I mean, you look at London, Manchester, Edinburgh, but obviously London is the biggest ecosystem out here. But how did, your exit, did it change things for Kerala and for the state? And did you get to see a lot more exits coming from there?
It certainly changed a lot. There were the number of exits, I don't think has ballooned. It's
Right.
not like we have like 20 exits since then, but we had a few after that for sure. But more importantly, I think that the investment scene in Kerala improved significantly. So
Right.
when I sold the company, the investment company that funded us for very small amounts, now they're a much bigger fund.
Mm.
The company that helped us with some tax help back then, because there was nobody to help out, right? We had like this one person who became a close friend of mine. They are the premium M&A advisory firm in Kerala. They do only M&A today, right?
Okay.
Because they started M&A with Profoundis, my company, and now they are the M&A go-to M&A firm in Kerala called FinLead. Kannan is the CEO, is a good friend of mine. Then we saw that employees started treating the ESOPs a little bit more valuable because they know they can make money out of it. The exit became a huge news in newspapers and things like that. That the taboo of startups started going down a little bit. I wouldn't say that one fine day just went out because Profoundis exited, but it certainly started making a dent in the taboo that typically Indians have about starting up, like being employers versus employees,
Yeah.
right? So a lot of changes, but since then, if you look at the past 4 or 5 years, I think almost every batch of YC has at least one Kerala company.
Oh, nice.
This wasn't the case, right? Like 2012, zero. It took it, so we exited in 2016. It probably took another 1 or 2 years. From then onwards, every batch has at least one, right? So
Interesting.
that certainly, it's probably not the exact metric for quality, but it's certainly one of the pointers that you can look at. So yeah, those are the ways in which I have seen that ecosystem kind of evolve. And I'm still pretty closely working with the ecosystem. I go out, whenever I go there, I kind of do 1 or 2 talks, invested in a bunch of companies back there, things like that.
Interesting. And then, how did you move on to Insent and, the exit to ZoomInfo? And how did the whole journey happen there?
Yeah, after leaving Full Contact, I kind of consulted for about 8, 9 companies, then
Okay.
started Insent in October of 2018. Um, we started with a slightly different idea, actually. The name of the company was Data Chain. This was like a data on blockchain kind of an idea before blockchain was like a big thing.
Right.
But we realized that that business is not gonna, I mean, it might take off, but it was not a business that I was proud of building because it was data. There was a little bit of a gray line here and there. Unlike the other company, that was a data company, but that was business data, right?
Right.
Business data in my mind is actually different. It is you need business data to do business. Versus the data chain was, we were trying to bring transparency to the consumer data, but we learned that it's very difficult to do that. It's almost like if you want to play with the pigs, you have to get dirty, right? So it was not a
Yeah.
company that I was proud to build. So we pivoted and changed the name of the company to Insent. Insent is like intent and consent, that together is Insent. So the idea was to build out a buyer-centric conversational platform that enables B2B sellers and buyers to interact real time. So it is a
Okay.
chat-based platform that looked at who are the best buyers. Are they willing to have the conversation? And if our system recognized that they are willing to have the conversation, then directly connect them to salespeople, and salespeople will be able to talk to people right from their Slack.
Oh,
So
interesting.
that was Insent. We scaled to about 35 people, raised about $2.7 million in 3 rounds. We were going to raise our Series A. Things were really going very well. We figured out the efficiency part. It was growing well. At that time, Henry Schuck, the CEO of ZoomInfo, who
Right.
he and I have known each other for a little bit of time because I've consulted for him in the past.
Interesting.
He wanted to buy out the company because he wanted to add chat into his portfolio. He also wanted me to join ZoomInfo as one of the leaders at the company. We kind of talked, and I really like Henry. It's very difficult not to like him given what he has achieved.
Sure.
So I when I went to his office, I was supposed to go to Bay Area on Monday to get my term sheet, but on the Wednesday before, he asked me to come to his office. I went there. We got in a conference room, spoke from 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., except a 45 minutes, including lunch. We basically spoke. We spoke about everything. We spoke about business, industry, Insent, competition, his family, my family. At the end of the day, he was convinced he has to buy the company. I was convinced I'm ready to sell the company. Then it was just a quick negotiation. It was not even a negotiation. I basically said one number, which wasn't greedy. And he basically said, okay, that makes sense. So it was pretty straightforward. And whole through the acquisition journey, he kept up the word, the promises, everything. So it was a very smooth process. In 45 days, the whole thing was done.
Interesting. And you moved there as a chief data officer, and you there for a year, or more than that?
No, actually, I joined as the SVP of
Okay.
product initially. And then from there, I became the SVP of product and data. And
Okay.
then from there, Henry promoted me as the chief data officer. I was there for a little over 2 years in
Okay.
total.
Interesting. Got it. And you've had you've done close to around 6 startups, 2 successful exits. Um, what made you start another company, and how did you identify the market need for this product?
Yeah, so I've only done 2 companies and both of them exited.
Yeah.
The others were product. The legal entity was still the same.
Still, okay.
So we were bootstrapped. So it was like, yeah, I've done a bunch of products, like 9 products or so I have built, but only 2 companies, and this is the third one from a technical legal
Yeah,
standpoint.
yeah, yeah,
Then the reason why you start company, once you're an entrepreneur, you always have that, it's almost like racing, or, you have a kick you get out of it,
yeah.
right? There's certainly a little bit of that. Once you're an entrepreneur, you are an entrepreneur always. My time at ZoomInfo was actually very good, but part of the reason why I do companies is because I'm a person who wants to learn as fast as possible. And
Mm,
there aren't very many ways in which you can learn faster than running a startup. You just
yeah,
cannot. Because you're on the field playing. That's the best way to learn.
yeah,
You can read and learn, you can try and learn, you can explain. Yeah, those are all good, but playing is the best thing. Secondly, I am a big fan of building teams. I'm very proud of the teams that we built back in Profoundis and at Insent. And I see all of those people doing VP or above. Interestingly, one thing, right? Insent, we had about 30, 35 people in total when we exited. Um, 13 out of them, 13 out of the 30 people are entrepreneurs today.
wow,
Six in 6 companies, right? So people kind of came out. My first product first product engineer and first product manager, they started one company. My first SDR started a company. My co-founder started, like, people all started different companies, and that, to me, that tells me that we did something right. The
right,
culture was good. The people are smart. They learned enough to kind of get that confidence that I can go out and do something out there. So I'm incredibly proud of the teams that we built at Profoundis and at Insent. So that's another thing that I really like. Starting again, meaning I can build out a really amazing team and help kind of grow their careers a little bit. The third thing is AI was happening thick and fast. So this
yeah,
is probably one of the best time, maybe for you and me. The transformation that we are seeing with AI is probably
true,
going to be the biggest turn of events that we will see in our lifetime, right?
yeah,
We were young when internet was happening.
yeah,
I was like 10 when it was happening,
true,
or maybe even 8. Mobile, I was just in engineering, and like I was there but not really. Cloud was too early. So many of the transformations that we have seen, we were too early to completely make sense out of that.
yeah,
Versus AI, this is the time when I have the energy, I have the network, I have the passion. It's probably going to be the biggest transformation that we will see for a really long time. So it was difficult to sit out,
yeah,
when you have an opportunity to go out there and define the future world. Why wouldn't you do it? Right.
mm,
So that was another reason. I'm incredibly passionate about solving problems and hopefully building Docket into this really big company.
nice.
That's the idea behind starting another company.
Got it. And was the focus to look at building the virtual sales engineer for AEs? How did you get to this problem idea?
Yeah, I've always been around sales, marketing, data. This is the world that I know a little bit about in
Right.
B2B, right? That's who I am. So this problem that we are trying to solve kind of organically found me. I have been a salesperson selling at my own companies, and at ZoomInfo, the company is an incredible revenue organization. They've got like thousands of sellers, like somewhere between, including AEs, SDRs, AMs, CSMs, everything. It's a couple of thousand sellers actually.
Yeah.
So I've been able to work very closely with them. And I saw when they are trying to sell complex products, they need a ton of help. because these salespeople are not engineers. Versus the buyers who are coming, they are all very technical. Think about selling a cybersecurity product or think about selling a dev tool. The buyer is actually an engineer or a super technical person. And in many cases, there are like 5 or 6 of them in the buying committee who are asking questions to these poor account executives who are 26 years or 28 years old, right?
Yeah.
So they need a ton of help to make that sales happen. And companies were trying to hire sales engineers to get this support for account executives. That's a very, very expensive ordeal, and you can't find all the sales engineers that you need. So that's the problem that I identified. And I saw AI coming in very quickly. And I foresaw kind of an opportunity to potentially solve that problem. For the first time in history, you have an ability to actually create an AI sales engineer that is going to assist an account executive to close deals. Right? Like even a year back, it was difficult to build what we are building.
Yeah.
Until GPT-4 came out, you couldn't really put an enterprise level production ready system out there, right? So there is a clear why now this is the time. And the problem was organic. I could resonate with the problem so deeply that technology opportunity was there. So I was like, okay, let's go ahead. And I was passionate about solving the problem. So let's go ahead and do it.
Correct. And, I've listened to a lot of other people talk about it, but do you think the role of SDR will no longer be there in next, 3 to 5 years?
Just a disclaimer, we do not play in the SDR phase.
Yeah.
Docket is an account executive, account manager kind of a phase. So this is like a slightly SDR. My vote is that the number of SDRs in the world will come down.
Okay.
So there will be a job displacement, but that doesn't mean that all these people will not have any jobs, right? Every technology will do some displacement for sure.
Sure.
We think of as SDRs is not a long-standing career, as in it did not exist in 2000. It did not exist in even 2010. If you think about it, Outreach as a company in 2013, they were doing recruiting. And then 2013 end is when they started to pivot into what we call as Outreach, like a scaled, reach out platform. So SDR is still a pretty high-tech company related small set of people. There are only roughly 900,000 SDRs in the world, versus there are about 5 million account executives. There are like 7 million support people. So SDR is still a very smaller percentage of the selling crowd. And it does not exist in like a manufacturing and places that are outside the tech. SDR is not that widely used, although we think of them, So just those are all helpful for people who are listening to put that into perspective. So it's a newer discipline or newer stream of things, and it kind of helped SDRs to get started at the bottom of the pyramid to get into the workforce and then go do other things inside the company, right? Every SDR wants to become an account executive in 2 years.
Yeah, true.
Now with AI, what they can do is they might not even have to be an SDR. They can start becoming an account executive, can start becoming a customer support person. They can start becoming a procurement person, because the AI is going to kind of take them on ground floor and help them guide through. And like Docket today, for companies using Docket, we onboard account executives 20% faster today.
Nice.
Right. And as we scale and do more things, I can imagine onboarding getting 50% faster. Right. And I can in the future promise our customers that, hey, you take a youngster right out of college and we can kind of help them to be good on calls. Try to help them sell, things like that, right? AI or we or some other company will help them to do those things. So there'll be a displacement. My gut feeling is 50% or more of SDRs will get displaced into other higher levels of tasks than the SDRing.
Got it. And obviously, I'm going to talk about Klarna because they've been in the news because they've said they want to use Salesforce and Workday.
Yeah.
But do you think AI will displace SaaS? I mean, I've been into SaaS. Do you think software is eating software, or that AI is going to eat the software share going forward?
Yeah. So I think one of the underappreciated fact about AI is that for the first time ever, you have an ability to create tools or applications or agents based on unstructured data. So
Right.
if you look at a Salesforce, a HubSpot, a ServiceNow, a Workday, a Rippling, all of these companies, what is the underlying base platform? It is a structured database,
Right.
right? It's a set of contact data at some level. It's either customer data or employee data, or it is some form of a name, title, email, things like that, right? So it's a structured database at the core of it. And then these guys have different views and different filters and different engagement layers on top of it. So, and that was one of the reasons why Salesforce was this invincible giant, because
Yeah.
they had this data model called as contacts and leads and deals. And all of this is how you do sales. But for the first time, you don't necessarily need structured data as your database. You can put unstructured data in, and you can get value out of unstructured data. You can search on top of unstructured data, get insights based on unstructured data. So that makes it way easier, or that makes these existing companies a little bit, mortal than they used to be. It does not mean that they will just go away. Like Salesforce, I was at Dreamforce last week. It was all about Agent Force, Agent Force, Agent Force. Because Mark, at some level, he recognizes that this is existential for the company. It is either they take the turn or get killed. Get killed in doesn't mean that they are going to stop existing, right? Like IBM exists today, Oracle, like all these bigger companies will continue to drive as bigger companies. We might start seeing Salesforce as a legacy stock rather than a growth stock, right? And Mark doesn't want that. So I don't think they are going to go away, but whether they will be the thriving company of the future or not will completely depend on how they take the curve into AI and how they drive the AI wave.
Got it. And Shamath, who's a VC at Social Capital, he started an incubator called 1890, where he's
Yeah.
building solutions which are like 90% cheaper with 80% feature complete using offshore talent and AI. Do you think
Yeah.
the cost of building products as well as creating products is going to amplify 100 times, as well as cost is going to go 90% down? Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. When SaaS started, if you go back and look at how SaaS evolved, when SaaS happened, people started doing the same things. A lot of enterprises started doing their own. They were like, you know what, I can build this out, right?
Yeah.
And then they quickly, in a year or so, they recognized that, yeah, this is not that difficult. Building is only one part of it. Maintaining is a whole different beast out there, right? So to Salesforce, one of the message by Mark was, don't DIY AI. Don't do it yourself with AI was one of the prominent message from him. So I mean, Chamath, his projects, while he's one of the smartest guys around for sure, a lot of the projects that he has done, mixed reactions, right? Some are very successful, some are not. So let's see how that would look like. But see, here is the thing. If you are a small SMB, you are looking at a consolidated product for very little amount of money, right? If you look at HubSpot, why is HubSpot so successful in SMB? Because for $1 that you're giving HubSpot, they are giving a lot of things to you, right? That's how Zoho is. That's how HubSpot is. That's how, like a MailChimp is, right? That's why SMBs prefer that. There's this other company, 37 Signals by Jason and team, right? They also have this thing called once.com. They are like, enough with this SaaS. There are so many tools that are not SaaS worthy that are becoming SaaS. 100% agree, right? I have a screenshotting tool that they are like, pay us $6 a month. I'm like, why? Like, all I need to is do just a screenshot. I use that screenshotting tool because it can take rolling capture of a screen. And rolling capture is useful when you want to do like a Slack or something. Rolling capture is useful. That's why I use that tool. But to make that into SaaS is like, what? Like, or calendars, like calendars used to be apps. You pay like $20, buy the calendar app, right? Now it's like $7, right? And like Superhuman as an email client, $30 a month, right? So the SaaS thing is going so wide on so many things that 37 Signals is like, enough is enough. Slack is so expensive today. There's no need for Slack. We are going to create Campfire, which is like pay once and just use. So there are these different kinds of people solving similar kind of problems. They will have varying amounts of success. I don't think that would replace like an Atlassian. Like,
Yeah.
Chamath is not going to create a tool that is going to replace Atlassian at some company,
Yeah.
right? It's not going to
Correct.
happen. But SMBs, smaller companies, lifestyle businesses, they will get a lot of value out of those tools. So that's potentially a way.
Correct. And Arjun, since I'm on the revenue side of the business, when it comes to early stage startups, should the founder uh, be the person who should create the playbooks, or should it be like the head of sales or head of revenue?
I don't think that the founder needs to be good at creating the playbook.
Okay.
The founder should be the person who drives the 0 to 1.
Right.
Right. What I have seen succeed very well is when you are at the base, the founder is doing all the sales. Right. You
Right.
are kind of you're the SDR, you're generating the meetings, you are doing the first meeting, second meetings, doing the demos, follow-ups, agreements, post sales, the whole thing done by the founder. And then you start taking small pieces and start hiring for people, right? You are like, okay, you take care of post sales, or like you take care of the SDRing, you take outsource it, give it to an agency, whatever, but you are still very closely involved. Maybe at about 200, 300, 400K, you start becoming the sales engineer in the call. So the founder is still on the call, but you have an account executive who is driving the relationship. So they will set up the meeting. They know the context. Before the call, they will give me a Slack saying, hey, here is the company that we are going to talk to. Here are the set of people that we are going to talk to. Because at that point, I don't have time to do the research for 30 minutes myself, right? So they are going to give me the dossier for the meeting. They will do the discovery part. And then I come in as a sales engineer. And that continues till that million, maybe 2 million, whatever is the time. And at some point during that journey, you're going to bring in a director of sales or a VP of sales who is a leader, right?
Right.
And ideally, that person is the person who is starting to put some playbooks in place, right?
Okay.
Because a founder is not good at playbooks. A founder's job is by hook or crook, get it to a million, like literally do
Yeah.
things that don't scale. A founder can get away with a lot of things.
Yeah.
I can be pushy, I can be less pushy. I
Yeah.
can make mistakes, I can not follow the sales process. Buyers are fine with it because they
Right.
appreciate that it's a founder, they have a depth in product knowledge, so I'm going to take that, right? But playbook is like your idea of playbook is a scalable way of things, a step-by-step scalable way of doing things that is best done with leaders coming in and doing it, people who have been there and done that, in my opinion.
Got it. And would you advise founders to get a VP of sales when they have had $1 million in ARR, or would it be okay to get them before as well?
I mean, if you get a VP, the biggest thing is if you are hiring somebody before you are getting to 1 million, whatever be that role, that person has to be a doer,
Yeah.
right? Because you don't need managers at that point. Whether you are hiring an engineering leader, sales leader, marketing leader, doesn't matter. You need a doer.
Right.
So if the agreement is that this person is going to come and then roll up the sleeves and generate meetings, then close the meetings, build their own deck, build their own messaging, and
Okay.
if needed, go to post sales, yeah, you can hire that person. But in most cases, a VP of sales candidate might not be willing to do that,
Yeah.
or you might not have the kind of money to pay that person because VP of sales typically is a much more expensive kind of a role. So it is, if a more experienced VP joins the company, regardless of whichever role, they are going to add value to the company. But is that person willing to do what it takes? That is the first question. Do you have what it takes to give to that person to make it worthwhile for that person? Those are the two questions that you need to answer.
Got it. And how long does it take for the sales team to ramp up? Especially, if they're joining, would you ask them give them 3 months or a couple of weeks?
Yeah, I mean, when you say sales, I'm assuming it is account executive, the actual sellers. Typically, a sales team ramp is about 3 months.
Okay.
And during the 3 months, you still look at the leading indicators. Like,
Yeah.
if you want somebody to close your first deal in third month, let's say,
Yeah.
you are looking at the leading indicator in a way that are they able to generate meetings in the fourth week or fifth week? Are
Right.
they able to progress from first call to second call in the sixth week or seventh week? Are they able to send proper emails out? Are they able to bring the buying committee to the table in the 9th week or 10th week? If that leading indicators are happening, then you can kind of feel confident that they are going to close within 12 weeks. But if none of that is happening, then it's highly unlikely that this in 13 or 12th week, they close a deal. So that's one side. The other
Right.
side is how much does the person know about your product?
Yeah.
Can make them do demos to you like a role play. Say that I'm the VP of sales at this company. Now sell my product to me, right?
Okay.
And that will tell you a lot. Ask that, are they asking the right discovery questions? Are they at a point where they are demo certified for them to run a call? They should
Right.
be there in 3 months, right? Fourth month onwards, you are kind of giving them the full quota, and then you want them to hit those numbers. So yeah, that's the rough. But for some industries, it is more complex. Like a financial services will have a longer window of ramping up because it's a more complex sale.
Correct. Correct. And Arjun, do you think salespeople are money motivated? And how would you go about creating a comp plan which incentivizes them?
Yeah, certainly money motivated, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Again, generally in capitalism, making money is actually a good thing, right? So
Yeah.
so salespeople want to make money. That's a good thing. In fact, I come from the philosophy that a good salesperson should make more money than the CEO.
Hmm.
I am super happy if my salesperson makes $1 million a year, which
Yeah.
means that person has potentially brought in like $4 million to the company. Because roughly that's the way you think about it. Their OTE is should be like 1/4 of the quota. So
Yeah.
if I can break it down. So let's take a typical account executive in US, right? Not very experienced, but somewhat of experience. You're talking about roughly 80 and 80 or something, 80,000 in base,
Yeah.
80,000 commissions, right?
True.
So if it is 160, that is the OT of that account executive, then their quota should be at least 4 times of that. So what would that be? So 160, 60, 64, right? 640K
Yeah.
is the OT. When you're early stage company, you don't give 1.5 million quota. As you grow, as you do enterprise deals, then your quota or your salespeople quota can go up to 1.5 million. Your ACVs are big enough to support that quota, but otherwise you're not. So that's a good thumb rule. That's how you can comp. Then the other things that you do is, can you give kickers when they hit their 640K, they get a kicker of like, I don't know, $5,000 one time.
Yeah.
Anything they close on top of 640K, you don't cap their commission so that they're excited to go and close 720K instead of 640K.
Mm.
Then for all the additional thing, this is what we have done at Docket. If you hit your quota, you get a kicker at that point itself. And then anything more that you're closing, you get almost 1.8 times the commission than the commission that you are earning. And your commissions are uncapped, right?
Right.
So if my salespeople are actually kicking ass, they'll make more money than me,
Right.
right? And I'm super happy about it. Let them drive BMWs, new BMWs every month. I don't care. That's what
Right.
I want.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Interesting. And you've been successful in raising of funding in such a short time, and in such a difficult market. What advice would you give to founders who are listening on the podcast on what should be the fundraising strategy?
Yeah. I mean, what we have seen in the last 1 year of fundraising is that AI, it's a tale of two cities. There's the
Yeah.
AI world and there's the non-AI world.
True.
Non-AI world valuation is not that high. It actually sucks a little bit. The
Okay.
AI world, the valuation is good.
Yeah.
Now, if you're a repeat entrepreneur, the valuation in AI is actually very good, right?
Yeah.
And the way in which you can raise the money is actually pretty easy. So for me, I was on the lucky side where I'm a repeat entrepreneur, have 2 successful exits, the ZoomInfo tag name, C-level at a public company, and doing something where I have deep expertise in. So I had a ton of interest from investors. Both the rounds where I've raised 5.3 in my seed round and 15 in my Series A. Both were super oversubscribed and to a point where I had to say no to like millions of dollars because I didn't have space, I didn't need it, all of that.
Okay.
So for founders who are doing it, see, this is a time when it is not that difficult. If you are doing an AI company, if your thesis is strong enough, then there is money out there for you to raise. It's not easy, but it's not insanely difficult. But
Got
as you're progressing down this line, I think it's going to get a little bit more difficult. Next year is going to be more difficult. So if you think you are onto something, start raising something, to raise a 500K, raise $1 million and $1.5 million or 2 million. Don't go and try and raise 5 million immediately. If you're a first-time founder, try to do like a 500 to 1.5, raise it and kind of go from there. The one mistake that I see entrepreneurs make is talking to the wrong kind of investors. So a good thumb rule is a sweet spot fit for an investor is 2% of their fund size. So if it's $100 million fund, their sweet spot ticket size is $2 million. They might do $1 million, they might do 4 million or 3 million, but 2 million is kind of their sweet spot. So one mistake that I see is a lot of founders will go to like a $400 million fund and ask for 400K, right? Like that won't work. So look for who is the set of the band of investors who are potentially good fit for you. Go talk to them. You need a relationship with investors. What I mean by that is there is the saying that investors invest in lines, not in dots. So you cannot jump into somebody's radar and say invest today, right? If you plot a graph saying timeline, time on the x-axis, and let's say growth or revenue or status on the y-axis, you show up once, you're a dot. You show up twice, second dot, third dot. When it is 3 dots, you are becoming a line in investors' head. Oh, I met this guy 6 months back, or I met this girl 3 months back, and she said she's going to do this, and she did that. That's how you raise the money. So don't wait for exact moment to go talk to investors. Have a relationship going with at least a few of them, so that when you see that there is some interest coming from 1 or 2 people, you pull everybody to the table and create a fear of missing out and then close the round. That's the way to close rounds.
Got it. Got it. Super, super interesting. And Arjun, I quickly want to do the top 3. What's your favorite business book?
If I'm not so much of a book fan, but the things that are like the hard things about the hard things is obviously amazing. 0 to 1 is very good. So those 2.
Correct. And if you could go back in time when you started Docket, what is the one thing you would have focused on or done anything differently?
With Docket, I think that Docket, I don't think I would do anything differently. I think it's all going in the right direction. There's nothing that I think I would do differently. It's all yeah.
Okay, correct. And do you have any favorite online tools, for example, Gmail, Slack, Zoom?
Zoom, I really like Zoom. I really like Slack. I use a bunch of AI tools. I use ChatGPT quite a bit.
Right.
I use Loom quite a bit. Recently, I think my favorite tool is a tool called Screen Studio. Not many people know this. It's a smaller startup. If you go to my LinkedIn, I put a lot of demos in there, and all those demos are recorded in Screen Studio. It almost feels like somebody has sat down and edited those videos, but those are literally one-take screen recordings that I don't spend more than 5 minutes on. And that's completely done by Screen Studio. It's beautiful. Every time I put a demo out there, I get like 10 people asking which product did you use, and I say Screen Studio. So that's a good thing.
Oh, interesting. Well, put that in the show notes. And Arjun, what's the best way people can reach out to you and know more about Docket?
LinkedIn is the best way to reach me. I am active. I post a bunch of content, so I think it'll be valuable. So feel free to reach out there. For Docket, go to docketai.com. And if you are, there are also demos on LinkedIn if you want to check it out. Or if you think your company can use it, reach out, submit a form, and we are happy to get on a call with you.
Awesome. We'll put that in the show notes. Arjun, thank you so much for taking on time speaking to us. I really enjoyed my conversation with you.
Thanks a lot, Rohit. Great to be here.